Hello there, welcome into the show. I'm Adrian Healey in the delightful company of one Stephen Nicol, one Shaka Hislop. We have Sid Lowe joining us from Madrid as well. And Sid, got to start with you. Got to start with the very latest with the coronavirus and its effects continue to spread throughout Europe and, of course, the footballing world as well. Notable leagues so far impacted by coronavirus. Tuesday's Champions League games postponed in Turin and Manchester. La Liga suspended for the next 2 match days. The Real Madrid squad currently in quarantine. Serie A suspended until April the 3rd. 2 Italian players have also tested positive for coronavirus. The Eredivisie in the Netherlands suspended for the next 2 match days, and just earlier today, MLS in the US suspending its operations for the next 30 days. But Sid, you're right there in Madrid. Let's start with you and get your perspective, particularly with those Real Madrid players in quarantine.
Yeah, what happened was that this morning it was confirmed that one of Real Madrid's basketball players, Trey Tompkins, had got the coronavirus. Real Madrid's basketball team had been in Milan last week. They played behind closed doors, but they did play. And in fact, obviously with hindsight, this has even more of an impact than it did at the time. Trey actually put out a tweet back then when he said, look, we need to take this virus seriously, and can we please do so? Why aren't we playing in the neutral venue? Well, he's come back from Milan. He does have the virus, and because he's tested positive, and because Real Madrid's basketball team trains at the same place as the football team, and indeed all of the youth teams, it's a centre of sporting excellence for the entire club. And so what the club did today was they sent all of the players home, they took all of the staff home, they even contacted the wives and husbands of some of the staff and got them back from their workplaces and sent them home as well. And Valdebebas, Real Madrid's training ground, is on total lockdown. It's totally closed up now. Those players are in quarantine. Of course, they've been sent home with training plans, but they are unable to train together. Now, that, of course, has been an extra factor in this conversation today between the Players' Union, the League and the Federation. The League wanted to play games behind closed doors. The Federation already wanted to actually postpone games. So did the Players' Union. And that has been the decision that's finally won out today. And the League will be stopped for at least 2 weeks. Yeah, that's the decision. It's different in different places, different leagues taking different courses of action. Do you think 2 weeks will be it? What's your suspicion at this stage? Well, look, I mean, obviously the starting point here is to say that I'm not a doctor and it's very difficult to judge this. And of course, this has been put forward as being for at least 2 weeks, and within 10 days, maybe 2 weeks' time, they will start to reevaluate and decide whether medical advice suggests that they can go back. Now, as you rightly say, there are different leagues saying different things, and that's one of the most kind of disconcerting elements about this, that the British government, for example, is saying that medical evidence and medical advice is suggesting there isn't a need to close games. The Spanish League has done it, the Italian League has done it. You've shown on the screen there a whole load of other leagues that have done it too. I must confess, my concern, or well, one of the many, many concerns I have, not least living here in Madrid, which is very much a hotspot within Spain, my concern with this is that we just don't know, and we don't know how long this will go on for. So we can talk about potential solutions, but those are solutions that at the moment we're grasping at without knowing what kind of margins there are, without knowing what kind of potential ways around this there are. And frankly, at the moment, I think it really is very much a case of seeing these 2 weeks out and then seeing where we're at. From the players' perspective, guys, we're starting to see players themselves getting quarantined, a whole Real Madrid team. If it was up to you, would you rather play behind closed doors or just be done with the season, finish it now?
If it were up to me as a player, I'd prefer to play behind closed doors. Yeah. You want to see the season out. That's just the kind of competitor, the professional in you. But kind of given what we know of the virus and certainly how contagious it is, you understand why health professionals take a different approach and see this differently from sporting professionals.
Stevie, what about you? Because it does change everything so dramatically.
What's the point of playing?
Yeah.
See the season out.
But you're putting yourself at risk by playing behind closed doors, because you're still dealing with the opposition. You don't know where they've been. They're dealing with you. There are staff that has to be at ground. So you're open to infection anyway. So what is the point?
From a player's perspective, the point is you see the season out and titles are awarded at the end of the season. To put things in perspective...
It's going to feel great, isn't it?
No, but to put things in perspective, should the Premier League just stop the season now and say, listen, we have no winner, The four who played in the Champions League.
When you put that slant
exactly.
on it, you know what's
the
going to
four who played in the Champions League.
Right, play the games. I don't care. Behind closed doors, play the games.
We just can't.
Sid, maybe we could just put this in some sort of wider context. All roads seem to be leading to a big meeting on Tuesday. I don't know why, quite frankly, they're waiting till Tuesday to meet UEFA, but they are. UEFA bringing all the big leagues together. What do you expect from that meeting?
Well, look, it's very difficult to know what comes out of this meeting, but I must confess that what I expect, of course, is that there's going to be a lot of voices heard at that meeting, and a lot of those voices will say different things. You know, a lot of those voices will say, let's call it a day. A lot of voices will say, we want to get this season finished. There will be clubs saying lots of things. There will be national associations saying other things. There will be UEFA desperately trying to protect Euro 2020, which I think will be very difficult to do. There will be leagues saying, look at how much money we're losing. And the Spanish League, for example, this evening has made it known that they believe that if this was to be suspended now and the season not to be completed, that this could cost them 600 million euros. And it's a figure that they've justified in terms of what they lose in TV contracts and so on. But whether or not that's really the case, of course, we don't know. And this is going to have a huge impact across economies well beyond football. So I think what will probably happen in that meeting is that there will be a whole load of contrasting ideas put forward. And then I don't know where UEFA take it now, because, of course, as we're saying, we have a problem, or we have lots of problems, but one of them is that we don't know if this isolation period will be sufficient. So in other words, if you could say for certain, look, it's 2 weeks, and then we can start up again, then you can say, right, well, we can move this and we can shift that around and we can get these games played in these dates and we can hold it off and we can play these games in front of full stadiums as usual. And yes, it won't be great, but it'll be like it always is when there's weather problems or whatever, and we play the games in hand and we get it done. But of course, if you don't know whether you've got 2 weeks and you think, well, maybe we've got 4 weeks or 6 or 8 or who knows how many weeks. And then you say, and anyway, as we start to creep into the summer, we've got the European Championships in a way. So I think the starting point, probably in terms of giving yourself the chance at least to fulfill all those kind of competitive duties, if you like, the starting point probably has to be moving the European Championships out the way to make space for everything else. And I just don't know how willing and how able the footballing authorities are going to be to take that on.
That will be a big call, won't it, for UEFA, but potentially moving it to the following summer. Much more immediately said, lastly for you on this, the Barcelona game next week in the Champions League is still taking place behind closed doors against Napoli. Are you surprised, and do you think that might yet change?
Well, that's the thing. I was just going to look at my watch then and say, what time is it? Spanish time. It's coming towards 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday night. I must confess, I find it very hard to imagine that this doesn't get changed in some way. Bear in mind that there are now blocks on flights from Italy into Spain. So, for example, even if we strip it right down to the basics, how do Barcelona's opponents get here? How does that happen? Unless there's some sort of special dispensation put in place, whether there's some sort of controls that enable them to do this. And so I must confess, while I realise it doesn't really answer your question, there's a bit of me that thinks, it might well be that that's not the question. It might well be that that's simply not the case. And this is one of the problems, of course, is that every time you start to deal with some of the elements, things are changing in a matter of minutes, let alone a matter of days. And as I say, it's a Thursday night. That game's not until next week. My guess is that this game doesn't take place.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.